The champagne glass shattered against the cold, unforgiving marble floor, sending a spray of Golden Dome Perignon across Italian leather shoes that cost more than most people's entire car collection. I didn't flinch, not even for a moment. My eyes stayed locked on Harold Blackwood, the man standing at the head of his polished mahogany dining table, his face flushed with a potent mix of expensive wine and even cheaper prejudice. "My daughter deserves better than trash," he declared, his voice booming across the room, each word dripping with disdain. The audience, his country club friends, his business associates, his horrified family members froze, their forks hovering over plates of overpriced delicacies. The silence that followed was deafening, heavy with anticipation. 23 pairs of eyes swiveled between Harold and me, the nobody who dared to court the princess, waiting to see if I would crumble under the weight of the king's judgment. I could feel their stares, sharp as knives, sizing me up in my borrowed suit, questioning whether I belonged in their glittering world of privilege. But I wasn't here to play their game. Carefully, deliberately, I folded my napkin, a piece of cloth that probably cost more than the monthly rent of my first apartment, and placed it beside my untouched plate of $40 salmon. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Blackwood," I said, my voice steady as I rose from my seat. "And thank you for finally being honest about how you truly feel." Sophia, my love, my anchor in this sea of elitism, grabbed my hand, her fingers trembling. "Adrian, don't," she whispered, her voice thick with desperation. I squeezed her hand gently, offering her a reassuring smile before letting go. "It's fine, love," I said softly. "Your father's right. I should know my place." Harold's smirk was a portrait of triumph, a self-satisfied expression from a man who believed he'd won, who thought he'd finally driven away the street rat who dared to love his precious daughter. If only he knew the storm that was coming. I walked out of that dining room with my head held high, my footsteps echoing against the opulent hallway adorned with Monets and gilded frames. The servants averted their eyes, their practiced neutrality a stark contrast to the chaos of the evening. Outside, Harold's Bentley gleamed in the driveway, a ostentatious symbol of his wealth that he'd made sure to mention cost more than I'd earn in 5 years. I didn't care. His world of excess didn't define me. Sophia caught up to me at my car, a sensible Honda that Harold had sneered at when I'd pulled up earlier that evening. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her flawless face, her voice breaking under the weight of her father's cruelty. "I had no idea he'd do this." I pulled her close, inhaling the delicate scent of her perfume mixed with the salt of her tears. "This isn't your fault, Sophia," I murmured, my lips brushing her forehead. "You don't need to fix this." "I'll talk to him," she insisted, her voice fierce despite her tears. "I'll make him apologize." I tucked a strand of her dark, silken hair behind her ear, my heart aching at her loyalty. "No more apologizing for him," I said firmly. "No more making excuses. He said what he's been thinking for the past year. At least now we know exactly where we stand." "Adrian, please," she pleaded, her emerald eyes searching mine. "Don't let him ruin us." I kissed her forehead, lingering for a moment to steady myself. "He can't ruin what's real, Sophia," I promised. "I'll call you tomorrow, okay?" She nodded reluctantly, her gaze following me as I slid into my car. As I drove away from the Blackwood estate, the mansion's lights twinkled in my rearview mirror, like distant stars I was supposedly too low to reach. But I wasn't reaching for stars, I was building my own galaxy. My phone started buzzing before I even hit the main road, the screen lighting up with names I didn't want to see. Probably Sophia's mother, Victoria, trying to smooth things over with her polished diplomacy, or her brother, James, offering awkward solidarity in his spineless way. They weren't bad people, just weak ones, too afraid of Harold's wrath to ever challenge him. I ignored the calls. I had more important moves to make. I voice-dialed my assistant as I merged onto the highway, the city lights blurring past like a canvas of ambition. "Catherine, I know it's late," I began. "Mr. Cross, is everything all right?" Catherine's voice was sharp with concern. She'd been with me for 6 years, since before the world knew the name Adrian Cross. She could read my moods like a book, and tonight, she must have heard the edge in my tone. Cancel the Blackwood Industries merger, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. A stunned silence stretched across the line. Sir, we're supposed to sign papers on Monday, she said carefully. The due diligence is complete. The financing is secured. I'm aware, I replied. Kill it. Send the notice to their legal team tonight. Cite irreconcilable differences in corporate culture and vision. Adrian, Catherine said, dropping the formalities, a rare move she reserved for when she thought I was making a colossal mistake. This is a $2 billion deal. The termination fees alone. I don't care about the fees, I cut in. He called me trash, cat, in front of a room full of people. Made it clear someone like me will never be good enough for his family or, by extension, his business. That bastard, Catherine muttered, her fingers already flying across her keyboard, the sound crackling through the phone. I'll have legal draw up the termination papers within the hour. Want me to leak it to the financial press? Not yet, I said, a plan forming in my mind. Let him wake up to the official notice first. We'll let the media have it by noon tomorrow. With pleasure, sir, she said, a hint of mischief in her voice. Anything else? I thought for a moment, the city skyline looming ahead like a challenge. Yes. Set up a meeting with Pinnacle Corp for Monday. If Blackwood Industries won't sell, maybe their biggest competitor will. Catherine laughed, a sound that carried the weight of our shared history. You're going to buy his rival instead? Oh, Adrian, you're ruthless. Why not? I said, a grin tugging at my lips. Trash has to stick together, right? I hung up and drove the rest of the way to my penthouse in silence, the city lights a constant reminder of how far I'd come. I wasn't the kid who'd slept in shelters, survived on free school lunches, or worked night shifts to afford community college textbooks. Harold Blackwood thought he knew me. He'd researched my past, dug up the dirt on my foster homes, my scrappy upbringing, my relentless climb through sheer determination and an unhealthy amount of caffeine. But he'd stopped there, assuming my origins define me. What he didn't know was that the scrappy kid he dismissed had built a corporate empire in the shadows. Cross Technologies, the company his own firm was desperately trying to merge with to stay relevant in the tech age, was mine. For a decade, I'd been acquiring patents, poaching top talent, and strategically positioning myself to become the kingmaker in our industry. I'd kept it quiet, using holding companies and trusted executives as the face of my operations. Why? Because I'd learned early that real power comes from being underestimated, from letting blowhards like Harold think they hold all the cards. As I pulled into my building's garage, my phone rang again. Martin Webb, Harold's CFO. That was faster than I'd expected. Adrian, it's Martin, he said, his voice tight with panic. I'm sorry to call so late, but we just received a notice from Cross Technologies terminating the merger agreement. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Martin, I said coolly. But we're set to sign Monday, he stammered. The board has already approved. The shareholders are expecting. Then the board should have thought about that before their CEO publicly humiliated me at dinner tonight, I interrupted. A long silence followed. Then, quietly, what did Harold do? Ask him yourself, I said. I'm sure he'll give you his version. Good night, Martin. I hung up, poured myself a glass of scotch, and settled onto my penthouse balcony, the city sprawling below like a chessboard. Somewhere out there, Harold Blackwood was about to have his evening ruined. I wondered how long it would take him to realize that the trash he dismissed controlled the one thing his company needed to survive the next fiscal year. By morning, my phone had logged 47 missed calls. Harold himself had tried reaching me 6 times, which must have been eating him alive, the great Harold Blackwood, reduced to repeatedly calling someone he'd declared beneath him. I was reviewing quarterly reports over a breakfast of black coffee and toast when Catherine called again. The financial press got wind of the terminated merger, she said. Bloomberg wants a statement. Tell them Cross Technologies has decided to explore other opportunities that better align with our values and vision for the future, I said. Vague and devastating. I love it, she said, then paused. Also, Harold Blackwood is in the lobby. I nearly spit out my coffee. He's here. Showed up 20 minutes ago, she said. Security won't let him up without your approval, but he's making quite a scene. Should I have him removed? No, I said, setting down my mug as a plan solidified. Send him up, but make him wait in the conference room for, let's say, 30 minutes. I'm finishing breakfast. You're evil, Catherine said, chuckling. I'll prep conference room C, the one with the uncomfortable chairs. 45 minutes later, I walked into the conference room to find Harold Blackwood looking far less imposing than he had the night before. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie slightly askew. The man who lorded over dinner like a king now looked like what he was, a desperate CEO watching his company's future evaporate. Adrian, he said, standing as I entered, his voice strained with the effort of humility. Thank you for seeing me. I sat down without offering a handshake. You have 5 minutes. He swallowed his pride, the act visibly painful. I apologize for last night, he said. My words were inappropriate. Inappropriate? I laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. You called me trash in front of your entire social circle, Harold. You humiliated me in your own home, at your own table, while I was there as your guest and your daughter's fiancé. I was drunk, he said quickly, as if that excused everything. No, I cut him off. You were honest. Drunk words, sober thoughts. You've thought I was beneath you from the moment Sophia introduced us. Last night, you just finally said it out loud. His jaw tightened, and even now, even in his desperation, I could see the flicker of disdain he couldn't fully hide. What do you want? He asked. An apology? You have it. A public statement? I'll make one. Just, the merger needs to happen. You know it does. Why? I leaned forward, my voice low and deliberate. Explain to me why I should do business with someone who fundamentally disrespects me. His face flushed, a mix of anger and fear. Because it's business, he said. It's not personal. Everything is personal when you make it personal, I shot back, standing up. You researched me, right? Dug into my background, found out about the foster homes, the free lunch programs, the night shifts at warehouses to pay for textbooks. He nodded reluctantly, his eyes narrowing. But you stopped there, I continued, walking to the window and gesturing at the city below. You saw where I came from and assumed that defined me. You never looked at where I was going. Do you know why Cross Technologies is successful, Harold? Because I remember being hungry. Because I remember being dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. Every person we hire, every deal we make, every product we develop, I ask myself if we're creating opportunity or just protecting privilege. I turned back to him, my voice steady but sharp. Your company represents everything I built mine to fight against. Old money protecting old ideas, keeping the door closed to anyone who didn't inherit their seat at the table. Name one person on your board who didn't go to an Ivy League school. One executive who grew up below the poverty line. One senior manager who had to work 3 jobs to put themselves through community college. His silence was answer enough. The merger is dead, Harold, I said. Not because you insulted me, but because you showed me who you really are and, more importantly, who your company really is. This will destroy us, he said quietly, his voice trembling. Without this merger, Blackwood Industries won't survive the next 2 years. Then maybe it shouldn't, I replied, heading for the door. Maybe it's time for the old guard to make way for companies that judge people by their potential, not their pedigree. Wait. He stood so fast his chair tipped over, his voice cracking with desperation. What about Sophia? You're going to destroy her father's company, her inheritance. I paused at the door, my hand on the handle. Sophia is brilliant, talented, and capable, I said. She doesn't need to inherit success. She can build her own. That's the difference between us, Harold. You see inheritance as destiny. I see it as a crutch. She'll never forgive you, he said, grasping at straws. Maybe not, I replied. But at least she'll know I have principles that can't be bought or intimidated away. Can you say the same? I left Harold standing there, his empire crumbling around him, and returned to my office. Catherine was waiting with a stack of messages and an amused look. Pinnacle Corp wants to meet Monday morning, she said. They're very interested in discussing an acquisition. Good, I said. Make sure Harold hears about it by this afternoon. Already arranged for the information to leak, she said, then paused. Sophia is in your private office. My heart skipped a beat. How long? About an hour, Catherine replied. I brought her coffee and tissues. I found Sophia curled up in my desk chair, her eyes red but dry, her expression a mix of resolve and vulnerability. She looked up as I entered, and I saw her father's strength, but her mother's kindness in her face. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," I replied, sitting on the edge of my desk. "I heard what you told him," she said, her voice steady. "Catherine let me watch on the conference room feed." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. "I think I've been a coward," she said, standing and coming to stand between my knees, her hands finding mine. "Letting him treat you that way, making excuses, hoping it would get better." "No, let me finish," she said as I opened my mouth to protest. "I've spent my whole life benefiting from his prejudices without challenging them. Last night, watching him, I was ashamed. Not of you, of him. Of myself for not standing up to him sooner." "What are you saying?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I'm saying that if you'll have me, I want to build something new with you," she said, her voice fierce with determination. "Without my family's money or connections or conditional approval." I pulled her close, my arms wrapping around her. "Are you sure?" I asked. "He's right about one thing. Walking away from that inheritance is no small thing." She laughed, the sound bright and defiant, cutting through the weight of the moment. "Adrian Cross, you just terminated a $2 billion merger because my father disrespected you. I think we'll figure out the money part." "I love you," I said, the words carrying more weight than ever. "I love you too," she replied, kissing me softly. "Even if you did just declare corporate war on my father." "Especially because I declared corporate war on your father," I teased, and she laughed again, the sound sharp and beautiful and a little bit dangerous. My phone buzzed again. "Catherine." "Sir, Harold Blackwood is holding an emergency board meeting," she said. "Our sources say they're discussing reaching out to you directly over his head." I put the phone on speaker so Sophia could hear. "Tell them Cross Technologies might be willing to discuss a merger with Blackwood Industries," I said, pausing for effect under new leadership. Emphasis on new. Sophia's eyes widened. "You're going to oust my father from his own company?" "I'm going to give the board a choice," I said. "Evolve or perish. What they do with that choice is up to them." She thought about it for a moment, then nodded. "He won't go quietly," she warned. "I wouldn't expect him to," I replied. "This is going to get ugly." "Probably," she agreed. "My mother will cry." "Definitely," I said, and we both laughed. "My brother will write another terrible song about family drama," she added, rolling her eyes. "God help us all." She smiled, and it was a smile that promised a fight, a smile that was sharp, beautiful, and ready for whatever came next. "So," she said, leaning into me, "when do we start?" I smiled back, my heart lighter than it had been in days. "How about now?" And that's how the nobody dating the princess became the king who toppled the kingdom, not with a sword or an army, but with a simple, undeniable truth. Respect isn't inherited, it's earned. Those who refuse to give it when it's due? Well, they learn the hard way that sometimes the trash takes itself out and takes everything else with it. By the following Monday, Harold Blackwood was no longer CEO of Blackwood Industries, ousted by a board desperate to save their company. By Tuesday, Cross Technologies had announced a merger with the newly restructured Blackwood Industries, a deal that promised innovation and opportunity over privilege and prejudice. By Wednesday, Sophia had accepted a position as our new head of strategic development, turning down her father's spiteful offer to fund a rival venture. And by Thursday? Well, by Thursday, Harold Blackwood had learned the most expensive lesson of his life. Never call someone trash unless you're prepared to be thrown out with it. The city kept moving, its lights still twinkling like stars I'd once been told I could never reach. But I wasn't reaching anymore. I was building, with Sophia by my side, a future where potential trumped pedigree, where respect was the currency that mattered most. And as we stood together, looking out over the skyline from my penthouse balcony, I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.